The opening theme of The View echoed through the brightly lit studio, the camera sweeping over the cheering audience before landing on the panel of hosts. Joy Behar leaned forward, flashing her trademark smile into the lens. Our next guest is a country music superstar, a coach on The Voice, and a man who's never been afraid to speak his mind. Please welcome, Blake Shelton. The applause erupted into a mix of cheers and whistles. From behind the curtain, Blake appeared, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dark denim shirt, jeans, and his signature-worn cowboy boots. His easy smile spread across his face as he waved to the crowd, but there was a flicker of guardedness in his eyes, like a performer walking into a space where he wasn't quite sure what awaited him. Blake shook hands with the co-hosts, hugging Whoopi Goldberg and giving Sarah Haynes a friendly nod before taking his seat next to Joy. She leaned in for a quick air kiss, the kind that looked warm for the cameras but carried an undercurrent of formal politeness. "Thanks for having me, ladies," Blake said, his deep Oklahoma drawl filling the studio. "This place is brighter than the Vegas Strip, I swear." The audience laughed warmly, some fans in the front row waving little cowboy hat props they'd brought just for him. Joy chuckled, "Well, you know us, we like to keep things sunny here." She held her smile, but her eyes studied him closely, as if she were reading him like a book before turning to the next page. Blake rested his hands on the table, leaning back in his chair with casual confidence. "Sunny's good," he replied, glancing around at the crowd, "beats a storm any day." In the control room, producers kept a close watch. One of them leaned to another and muttered under the hum of equipment, "This one could get interesting." Watch Joy's expression. On stage, the laughter died down, and Joy's lips curved just slightly, the faintest hint of a smirk playing at the corners. She adjusted her note cards, tapping them lightly on the desk, her body angled toward Blake as the air in the room shifted ever so slightly, from warm welcome to something more curious, maybe even probing. The audience, though unaware of the specifics, could sense the shift. That sixth sense every crowd gets during live television kicked in. Something was coming. The studio lights dimmed just a touch as the cameras zoomed in on Blake and Joy. The audience hushed, sensing something was about to shift from casual to charged. Joy Behar leaned forward, resting her elbows lightly on the desk, fingers loosely intertwined. Her smile was still there, but it had sharpened just enough to make Blake sit up a little straighter. "Blake," she began smoothly, her tone playful yet probing, "you've been quite vocal lately about some pretty divisive political issues. I'm curious, do you really think your fans want to hear your opinions off stage as much as they want to hear your music?" A ripple ran through the audience, subtle but noticeable. A few eyebrows lifted. Blake blinked slowly, processing the question. His easygoing demeanor flickered for just a moment. "Well, Joy," he replied, voice steady but careful, "I'm a singer, sure. But I'm also a person. People have always looked to artists to say something real, whether it's about love, life, or whatever's going on in the world. I reckon my fans expect me to be honest, same as you guys do every day." Joy nodded, eyes twinkling with a mixture of challenge and amusement. "Honesty is good, but sometimes, honesty can be hurtful, or misleading. Don't you think that celebrities have a responsibility to consider how their words might influence millions?" Blake's jaw tightened imperceptibly, and his fingers drummed lightly on the desk. "I believe everyone has the right to speak their truth. Doesn't mean everyone will agree, but that's how conversations start." Joy's smile grew a little wider, but it didn't reach her eyes. "True, conversations start that way. But sometimes those conversations turn into shouting matches, or worse, divisions that hurt people. When you take a stance, especially on big issues, you risk alienating your audience." Blake leaned forward now, his voice calm but firm, eyes locking with Joy's. "Joy, I get it. People get passionate, but I'm not here to alienate anyone. I'm here to share my music, and if people want to hear my opinions, well, I'm not going to hide them. If that means some folks don't like it, that's their call." The audience murmured softly, the tension crackling. Joy's gaze flickered for a moment to the other hosts, who were watching closely but staying silent. The air was thick with anticipation. Joy's next words came with a little more edge. "But don't you think there's a difference between sharing opinions and spreading misinformation or hurtful ideas?" Blake's smile tightened, and he shifted in his seat, a subtle but clear sign his patience was thinning. That's a pretty heavy accusation, Joy. I'm not here to spread anything but my honest take. If you want to call that misinformation, well, he let the sentence hang. The crowd shifted in their seats, the atmosphere charged, waiting to see how this exchange would unfold. The chemistry between them was electric, two strong personalities ready to clash on live television. The cameras caught every subtle flicker of emotion as Joy Behar's eyes narrowed slightly, her smile fading into a more serious expression. The studio felt tighter, the bright lights suddenly more intense as if spotlighting the brewing storm. Joy leaned closer across the desk, her voice lowering but carrying unmistakable firmness. Blake, don't you think celebrities have a responsibility? When you have millions watching, your words carry weight. You can't just say anything and expect no consequences. Blake's gaze didn't waver. He tilted his head slightly, the hint of a steely resolve showing beneath his calm exterior. Who decides what's responsible, Joy? You, the media, the fans. He paused, letting the question hang in the air, then added, I'm here to be real, not politically correct. Joy's lips pressed into a thin line, her fingers tapping lightly on the desk. Being real doesn't mean you get to be careless. Words can hurt, sometimes even more than actions. Blake's jaw clenched. He shifted forward, resting his forearms on the desk, voice low but intense. Careless. I'm not careless. I'm just not going to censor myself to keep everyone happy. If people can't handle the truth, that's on them, not me. The audience was silent now, caught between the two like spectators watching a sparring match. The co-hosts exchanged quick glances, some looked uneasy, others intrigued. Joy's voice dropped further, a sharp edge cutting through the polite studio hum. Blake, with all due respect, sometimes your truth sounds a lot like division. It hurts people, your fans, people who look up to you. Blake's eyes flashed with a mix of frustration and defiance. Joy, I respect you, but I don't think you get to decide what hurts my fans. I'm not here to sugarcoat or tiptoe around issues just to keep the peace. Joy shook her head slowly, the smile gone now. It's not about peace. It's about responsibility. You have a platform. Use it wisely. Blake stood up suddenly, the chair scraping sharply against the studio floor. His voice was calm but carried a clear finality. Maybe that's where we disagree. The room went still, the audience breathless. The co-hosts froze, eyes wide. Blake gave a slight nod, turned, and began to walk toward the stage. Exit. The studio atmosphere thickened as Blake's sudden movement silenced the room. Joy's eyes narrowed, her posture straightening, ready to respond, but Blake was already taking a step forward. Blake, wait, Joy started, voice firm but with a hint of disbelief. He turned slowly, the edge in his tone unmistakable. Joy, I came here to talk about my new album, not to have my character picked apart on national TV. The audience shifted uncomfortably, sensing the line had been crossed. The other hosts exchanged anxious glances but said nothing, waiting to see what would happen next. Joy folded her arms, a mixture of frustration and defiance flashing across her face. We're all adults here, Blake. If you can't handle a little tough talk, maybe you're in the wrong place. Blake's expression hardened, but his voice remained steady, controlled. I'm handling it just fine. But there's a difference between tough talk and personal attacks disguised as questions. Joy's lips pressed into a thin line. Personal attacks. I'm asking questions any public figure should expect. If you want to dodge them, that's on you. The tension was palpable. Blake took a deep breath, eyes locked on Joy's. I'm not dodging. I'm drawing a line. If this is how the conversation's gonna go, maybe I should step away before it gets worse. There was a long pause. The audience sat frozen, hanging on every word. Then Blake stood fully, pushing his chair back with a scrape that echoed through the studio. I appreciate the invite, he said quietly but firmly, but I'm out. The co-host started to protest, but Blake didn't wait. With a purposeful stride, he walked off the stage toward the side curtains. The applause turned into stunned silence and murmurs as cameras followed him out of view. Blake's footsteps echoed sharply as he moved swiftly toward the side curtain, his tall figure commanding the spotlight even as he exited the stage. The audience sat in stunned silence, the usual roar of applause replaced by a low murmur of disbelief. Y'all have a good day, Blake called over his shoulder, his voice steady but carrying a finality that left no room for argument. Back at the desk, the hosts exchanged quick glances. Whoopi Goldberg reached out instinctively, a hand half raised as if to stop him, but Blake didn't slow his pace. His face was set, determined, resolute. Joy Behar's eyes followed him, her expression unreadable. After a tense moment, she exhaled sharply and leaned back in her chair, forcing a tight smile. "Well," she said, voice steady though laced with a hint of irony, "I guess that's one way to end an interview." The audience shifted in their seats, some whispering to neighbors, others frowning in confusion. The camera cut briefly to the producers, who were already speaking urgently into their headsets, trying to manage the sudden turn of events. Sarah Haynes quickly moved to fill the silence. "Let's take a deep breath, everyone. We'll move on to our next segment." Behind the scenes, the mood was electric. Staff buzzed with activity, prepping for a damage control strategy as social media began to light up with clips of the confrontation. Meanwhile, Blake stood just off stage, steadying his breath. The tension in his jaw softened slightly, but his eyes remained fierce. He pulled out his phone and typed a quick message to his team, "Handle this carefully." Back at the desk, the atmosphere was thick with an uneasy calm. Joy Behar sat upright, her hands folded on the table, maintaining a composed front for the cameras. But her eyes betrayed a flicker of something, defiance mixed with a hint of regret. "Well," Joy began, forcing a light tone, "I suppose that's what happens when two strong personalities collide on live television." The audience gave a polite, cautious applause, unsure whether to cheer or remain silent. Whoopi Goldberg nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes the truth hurts, but it's important to have these conversations, even when they get messy." Sarah Haynes added, "Blake is a passionate guy. We didn't expect things to get so heated, but that's live TV for you." Off camera, producers huddled, their faces serious as they reviewed clips and drafted statements. The segment was already going viral on social media, with fans and critics debating Blake's walk-off and the fiery exchange with Joy. The hashtag Blake walks off was trending within minutes. Clips flooded platforms, some applauding Blake for standing his ground, others criticizing him for walking away. In a nearby green room, Blake sat quietly, his phone buzzing non-stop. He scrolled through comments, both supportive and harsh. A deep breath escaped him as he prepared to address the storm. Later that evening, Blake posted a carefully worded message on social media, acknowledging the heated discussion but emphasizing his love for his fans and his commitment to being authentic. The post garnered thousands of likes and sparked further discussion. Back at The View the next day, the hosts addressed the incident cautiously. Joy expressed regret for how the conversation escalated but stood by her belief in the importance of accountability. The episode became a cultural flashpoint, raising questions about celebrity responsibility, free speech, and the price of honesty in the spotlight.